Hello, Boone. Can you hear me?
Hi, Weiwu. Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Hello, Tor.
Hi, Tor.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, good. Tor, we have you. And I hope James Brown comes up soon. Hello, James. Hello, James.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Right. Cool.
Oh, yeah. Good. Good. So let me share my screen then. Entire screen. How do I share an entire screen? Desktop. Share. Okay. Good. So yeah, everyone can see my desktop. Good. Again, continue from the Alice to Bob story. Um, let's first look at the action token script for Alice to send the check. Last token script, previous token script meetings, we have defined what is a check. It's a promise to pay. Okay. Yeah. So first, the model of the check is defined by defining a data object called redeem by email with two elements in it. One is amount, the other is the predicate. If you remember our protocol, at this moment, Alice should generate a very strange number, which is riddle that only Bob can answer if he can present attestation to his email address and zero knowledge proof of, proof of knowledge of privacy key. That's our protocol. I will take you to the protocol. I'll take you to the protocol. So it's use cases. Yes, okay. Alice wishes to send to Bob, and Alice knows Bob's identifier. Actually, this is the old version. The new version is this one. Master, I think it's master. Okay. Yep. Here we are. So what Alice does is Alice have to find, create a one-time key and compute this number. This number is the condition. This number is riddle. I probably should say riddle. I don't know what's a better way to say this, by the way. Give a name for this. And that riddle is S. And the question is whether or not Bob can produce such an X that satisfies this equation. and present a valid attestation on subject S, which is calculated from Bob's identifier. So really, inside the check, there are only two elements. One is the amount, how much to redeem from Alice's wallet, and the other is the riddle, which is a point on the elliptic curve. And yes, it is. And Bob needs to once receive this check, needs to do something. And this is the module. And I think we are familiar with this, right? What is inside the module? This is pretty much the same way how a Ethereum event was defined as a module. That's no problem, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. The next step is creating a view out of this, and then instead of a transaction, we have a sign action here, which refers to the module, and what that object is used for signing this check. So basically, it means that at this moment, a check is signed using the module, so using the data object redeemed by email, which has two elements. One is amount, the other is riddle. And that riddle is calculated from the email address, of course. So that being addressed, what is in the view? Here, I propose that in the view, the JavaScript gets a object that is the check, which has a defined structure that the JavaScript only needs to initialize and return. And that is defined structure, of course, contains stuff like amount and riddle. So it's easier to explain this if we observe how a data module, how ASN module, how do you generate Java code from the ASN module, and then we understand that process, and then we replace Java with JavaScript. Then you see what I propose here. So let's look at. There are a few examples in the examples directory, I think, or in the source directory, I think. So first I open the examples. This is attestation, Java code. This was originally created 6 months ago when we wanted to use this attestation for getting UEFA, FIFA ticket. It was UEFA ticket, but that project was abandoned, so the code is still here. So the interesting thing we want to see here is the data ticket data object. Okay, so first look at how ticket data object is defined here. This is it. The ticket data object. It has 3 elements: match, class, and admission. Match being one of the 60 matches, 50 matches, and the class being one of the 4 classes, and admission being how many people are allowed in. 开会呢 And sorry, my kid is talking. Okay, so so this is the data object. This is how to define. This one is defined in ASN1. The equivalent in XML is, you have seen it before. Let me show you. I think we have it exemplified, quoted that in an article. That was also 6 months ago when we wanted to do this. Yeah. So this is how it look like in XML. The same thing. This and this is the same thing. No problem. just the different notation. That it has three elements. One is numerical, the other is class, the third is start. Numerical, actually, one is newer, the other is older, but the idea is the same, okay? So out of this data object, this is the class generated. And I used library from this Objective-C, Objective Systems compiler or whatever. But I just want to get a concept through it. It doesn't matter which library or which what code it is. So out of the data object, take a data object, we created a class, and you can see there are public attributes like property. Actually, it's Java, so it's property. Public property match and public property admission. And you have class 2, which is another ticket class. And ticket class is restricted to 3. 3 possible values. No, not here. Where is the class defined? Damn it, I couldn't find it. Maybe it's in a different file. Yeah, it's a different file. Could have been in the nested class, but they like it to have a different file. Okay, so it has 3 possible values: 1, 2, 3, 4. So these Java classes for the code to initialize a data object, following the template. Actually, the schema or the module doesn't matter. Defined here. So if we take that thinking into this, then here, let me see if I can mute Victor. Yeah, Victor must have the same problem situation as me. He have 2 kids too. So inside the view, okay, so this is what happens in the view. That is, when the view gets started, this TokenScript engine already know that this view is intended to sign that the TokenScript engine knows before the view started that this view is intended to sign a check if that allows redeem by email. Therefore, the appropriate Java class is already created for the view to fill the values in. And when the view returns, when the user confirms the view, the now initialized JavaScript class is returned to the TokenScript engine for signing. That's a long-term sentence. Does it make sense? I can do it again.
Yeah, can you please say it one more time?
Okay, so look at this TokenScript. It's only 20-something lines. In this TokenScript, when the TokenScript engine launches this action card, it already know what this action card is gonna do. That is to sign a check of the type redeemed by email. Therefore, before the view even launches, or when the view is launched, the TokenScript engine injects into the view a JavaScript class based on redeemed by email check. And when the user confirms the view, when it confirms the action, the JavaScript would have already initialized this class with appropriate values, like the appropriate value for middle, so that the TokenScript engine can take this initialized object and convert it into a signed blob, which can be later turned into magic link or sent as a transaction. But the purpose is to sign it here.
I see. So it's kind of like a way of dynamically changing the tokens, the Web3j injection code for each token view.
Yes.
So I'm adding extra stuff in based on this ASN module.
Yes, based on this.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see it now. Yeah. At first, I was kind of like, why are you injecting this class? Do we have to write this class specifically to be injected? But now I see it it's formed from the TokenScript and injected in that way. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
The class that is injected is translated from this.
Yes. I see that.
And I show you the translation. A few days ago, I found a contractor who happened to be Indian. And he has done some excellent work. So I asked him to translate, and he did some really good work. So his result is exactly what as I said. So I basically can ask him what to do, show you what I asked him to do. This is a complicated ASN module, right? It has a lot of stuff. It's basically the attestation framework. Like the details in the attestations, like validity, issue years, which smart contract it corresponds to. And he wrote with less than 200 lines, a translation engine that translates into this text-based representation of the module. So I looked at his work and I said, if you can do this, you should be able to translate this thing into the JavaScript class that we can inject into the view. The idea is to let the view, the TokenScript guy who writes the view, to do a minimum amount of work if the module is already defined. Because when the view starts, he already have the JavaScript that he just needs to fill the values in. He just already have the JavaScript class that he just need to, create an object of. And then, of course, by the time you click confirm, this SNetX is useful to validate if the object returned by the view is good and valid. For example, you can put complicated stuff like rules. Like if you want to say the amount cannot be 0, then this is the place to put this restraint. And in fact, if the translation is done correctly, the JavaScript, when the view code, JavaScript code, wants to assign an amount as 0, the class might just refuse it outright instead of waiting for it to be passed to the TokenScript engine for signing. And not everything not everything to be signed can be changed by the JavaScript. For example, if you say, if you know that in the attestation framework, which is the wrapper around the data object, we can specify which contract this check is intended. So that contract value is fixed, and we can find some mechanism to fix it. But otherwise, the view's job is simply to initialize data based on JavaScript class. That's what I'm thinking. And first, I want to ask if you get what I mean here. And then I'm going to present alternative thinkings that I think are less feasible than this one, because I'm already showing the, I think out of the three, the best solution, to the best design.
That one makes sense.
Nice. And what do you think, Boom?
It seems that we can choose not to inject a class if we want to reduce the effort for implementation.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But you captured what I showed so far, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Now let's go on to in which other ways can we do this? So I thought about two ways. One is a slight variation from this one. That is, we simply ask the view to return a JSON object without injecting a JavaScript class. And we validate if that JSON object confirms the data module. So we somehow think that the JavaScript author here knows that he should return a JSON object that has two elements, and one is integer, which is amount, and the other is a bit stream, which is called redo. And then we just take it and validate it against the schema here, against the data module here. And for that to work, we might change this data module into something like JSON schema, so that we can use the existing JSON schema validation tool. That's one way of thinking. I personally feel that it's not decided. I personally feel that letting the JavaScript author to create JSON object and then return why the object is not so good, especially at runtime, is a little bit it's comparable to strong type versus loose type. And strong type is better in eliminating runtime errors. So I feel that it's inferior than the JavaScript class injection. I feel, but what do you think?
The idea is good, but the problem is JavaScript is weak. It's dynamic type.
Yes, but if we inject JavaScript class, we can use getters and setters to protect it, to protect the class a bit, encapsulate it a bit. Can we?
Yeah. Yes. But the code might become very verbose and not very idiomatic.
What is the last word?
Idiomatic. It doesn't look like normal JavaScript.
I see. I see. So you are more inclined to just get a JSON thing, right? Or do you think of a different way?
Yeah, more towards JSON, but or rather a dictionary. But you earlier you made the point that in the generated class we can also include validation rules, which can apply before passing it to the TokenScript engine.
Yes,
that sounds good.
In the module, then the class will be able to validate it.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. It also will be able to tell you if anything is missing, for example. Or if you misspell something, then in the JSON fashion, the misspelled element is considered non-existent, because when you call the dictionary, that key simply doesn't exist. But if you have a validating thing, then it will give an error outright, which allows a small step debugging. I don't have a better word for it. That is, allow JavaScript guy to write a very small thing and make a mistake and correct it and write more. But if you get big JSON out, then the big error that comes back out of it, then he has to trace back which part of the JSON is wrong, or the dictionary. Not the exact line of JavaScript code where the dictionary value is inserted. Just to recap, what I mean here is it's easier to debug if the error is on the line that you assigned the value or created the dictionary object, the elements, instead of having an error to tell you which part of the dictionary is wrong, and you have to figure out which line of the code that did it. Right?
Was that a question for me?
Yeah.
But yes, that sounds right.
That would be the advantage of JavaScript class. This disadvantage is it could look ugly, and people don't want to learn anything that is different than what they already have known.
Yes, and creating an instance of the class for signing. I imagine it will be very verbose. It's very long JavaScript code. If you want it to be kind of type safe.
Create a class that
create an instance of the class.
Prepare instance of class as a signable object can be non-JavaScript. What's the English word for you? Sorry, idiomatic.
Yes, I was referring to the JavaScript code in the view to create an instance of this class. If we want to make it type safe, for example, by using setters, then I imagine that this code in JavaScript is going to be quite lengthy compared to a big fat dictionary.
I see. Does it help if we do it the other way around? Sorry. Does it help if we say a JavaScript signed info object is injected? So JavaScript does not have to create the object. The object is already there. Except
what is a signed info object? Is that something? Is that an intrinsic thing, or is that something?
Object. Forget about it.
Okay.
So basically, there's a JavaScript object which you can use later which you can use to prepare the stuff to be signed. And that JavaScript is initialized with null value for every possible thing. But you need to do something to initialize it. It's not only null value though. In the ASM module, you can use like truth. You can use like you can either put email address here, or you can put a telephone number here, and then this choice has to be made. And then we simply make this choice unmade, not made yet, but we make an object anyway. So the JavaScript in the view has to make the choices. Just prepare the object. It's already created, but you need to call the methods to prepare it. Or the object is already created. You just need to assign it. Assign values and make choices. What would you say? Like you would say, nah, it's not very helpful. It helps a bit, or actually it does make the resulting code more look like JavaScript.
One way it definitely helps is auto suggestion or auto completion of code when the developer taps the property appears.
How is that achieved currently?
Two ways. If IDEs can examine a class, they can pop up suggestions, or a more popular way nowadays is something like TypeScript, which is transferred to JavaScript. In TypeScript is closer to a strongly typed language. So when you define a class, you define attributes as well as their types. Then you'll be closer to what you want. But I'm not sure if TypeScript can fit easily into what we have now.
Mm.
So back to your point about JavaScript, I think yes, it will help if it's a simple JavaScript class. I think we can experiment, but I think it will at least help with auto suggestions of properties. So at least when the user types dot, amount, and riddle can appear, which really helps a lot.
Okay, and the third way to do it is, you know, we used to do it in this way. I'll show you. And it's actually a long-term plan that I want to replace this, but I never figured out the right way to do it, so I left it untouched. So the traditional way we do it is, first, did I mention to you that I think attributes in the cards does not have to be declared if you don't want to apply a syntax restriction. So basically, we already have examples where, like, I must be able to find it. What is the keyword to search for? Anyway, I couldn't find the keyword to find the post. Basically, amount, expiry, and email, these are the local attributes of the card because we are in the card, right? And traditionally, we don't have a module. You know, back in the days, last year we didn't have module, so we didn't have ASN module or data module. So what we do is we do this. First, we declare the syntax, which could be defined in the module if you have one. And then we do this line. Now, this may look unfamiliar to you, but if you imagine it's not a sign, but a Ethereum call, an Ethereum transaction, then it makes sense to you, right? You declare the result of the view is Ethereum transaction. Then you have data, then you have UTF-8 or uint or stuff in it, right? Look familiar?
Yes.
So what we traditionally do is to declare the card attributes and then build a data structure using these attributes in the transaction, which is at the bottom of the card, right?
Yes.
Confirm, please. Yes, that's what we did before. And if we apply the same thinking here in this check design, then we will end up like something like what you are saying now. But I had hoped by introducing modules, we are able to separate them out. We are able to separate the module definition and implementation, which is instantiation. So you only have a module defined somewhere else. And then you can just have very simple TokenScript. So this module can be defined here outside of any actions. It can even be defined outside of the TokenScript and imported, so that you have very simple view and sign, or you have very simple view and transaction. So I'm showing you this design, which is based on traditionally how we do the thinking without using data module concept. The thinking back in the days. Then if we reapply that thinking to today's creation of checks, then you get something like this. But I prefer this one, which is by using module, you don't define the syntax of attributes anymore. And you don't define the validation rules anymore. But you simply have a module here. You might still need to define a few attributes if you want to take advantage of the fact that, that attributes allows you to source data from smart contracts. And especially if you want to source data from one attestation and use it in the other one, you might still need something like that. But this represented a different way of thinking, which I feel might be better than the previous one. So what we are seeing here is what I propose we have. We will start working from this on, and alternatively, well, what we could have is the. I probably should show you the left and right version. Yeah. So. So I feel the one on the up, the one up there on the upper half is better than the one on the lower half. And I'm slightly more inclined to have JavaScript injected than taking a dictionary and validate it. That's my thinking at the moment. Please comment.
I prefer the JavaScript injection. Is the intention to like procedurally generate the class and then inject it that way?
Yes, although it can be dynamic.
Yeah.
Static meaning that you generate this class when the TokenScript is compiled. Dynamic means that, but it doesn't matter. One way or the other, it's generated.
Yes.
Anyway, this is my thinking at the moment. We still have 5 minutes in this meeting. If you have something for or against it, let me know. I will be working on this to complete the TokenScript for Alice and Bob. One is for check and the other is for email address attestation in the next week, following the thinking that we decided today.
The two versions that you have opened, isn't the sign attestation needed to be processed somewhere?
The actual signing is done in the TokenScript engine, which is separately written in Java and Swift.
Yes, but after signing, doesn't it have to be processed?
Oh yes, there has to be something like create a magic link or something. Magic link is just the encoding of the signed data, basically.
But that means that the second version, the one at line 27, that doesn't seem right.
30 what?
27, where your cursor is.
Yeah, this line?
Yes, because when you read the attestation, if you use this second approach, when you use it, you seem to need to read this sign tag again.
I don't understand.
This semantics doesn't sound correct.
Give me the right one so I can see what is the problem.
So okay, can you go to the top pane then? So you have two versions, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm saying that the one at the top seems better than the one at the bottom, the one above.
Oh yes, the one at the bottom is I just use the old thinking before we introduce ASN module. So there's no module. Therefore, you cannot quote a module to get a type or something. So I simply use the template as placeholder for like turning this data object into a signed data.
Yes, but are you saying that these are two alternatives?
I think so.
Yes, I'm saying that the one at the one below that version without module, that looks wrong.
Yeah. I also think it's look wrong, but I don't know if it's for the same reason as you think. Yeah.
Because you need to read the elements twice. Once when you at least twice. Once when you sign, and you need to process it a second time.
Why do you need to process it 2 times?
After signing, what do you do with it?
In both cases, after signing, you probably get a magic link that you can copy and paste. And that magic link will also be stored in the activity for you to later copy and paste.
Yes, and then how do you unpack it from the magic link?
So that is the problem of the Bob side of TokenScript, I think. Oh, actually, it is this TokenScript. We haven't handled this. Yeah. So we didn't have it.
Yes, so that bit of code will have to read this module again.
Oh yes, that's right. Because it's not defined outside of the initial outside of the installation what's the English word? It's so long. Anyway, you mean because schema is not outside, you have to do it twice.
Yes, or if you just do it once, it feels strange for Bob, the code running on Bob's side, to read the sign tag to figure out the elements.
Oh yes, of course. Ideally, it should be reading the data module.
Yes.
Yes. That is the core reason that I prefer to introduce module here. Yeah, so that the reading and writing is based on same data module, the same ASN module.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's the way to go. I think I will work on this one. And next week you should be able to see Alice and Bob both sides. Also implementation difficulty. That's something I want to go with Tor on a detailed level, because it seems if we adopt this thinking, we need 2 implementations. One is how do you create JavaScript object out of the module? And the other is how does Java or Swift takes the data and make sure it's correct and sign it. We can make it simpler in a way that we only have JavaScript to make sure the data object is correct. And then Java only signs the attestation without checking that object. And then we can add the validation of the data object in the next few years. So we don't have to do it now. So basically, Java code only, and this is a thinking I talked with Tor, that is JavaScript makes data object and Java code makes attestations or checks out of the data object. That's the thinking I shared with you, Tor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is to apply that thinking, means we do it halfway here, halfway there. Yeah. And that means Java side, or in Boone's case, Swift side, doesn't really need to understand ASNX module, except for the attestation framework, which can be hard-coded. Because the attestation framework is always the same, very similar, right? Well, I think it's the end of the meeting already. So, Tor, in the coming week, in the coming 5 days or so, I will work with you on exploring the available libraries based on this design. And I think it's pretty clear that on Java side, we will use Bouncy Castle. And there's no question about what to do there, because Java has only attestation to make, which is similar to X509 anyway. Then we just need to explore how do we do it in JavaScript side, which means we need to look at the appropriate JavaScript libraries to do this task. And I have shortlisted one in the post on this post. I think the keyword is peculiar. Yes, I've shortlisted this JavaScript library for this. And then we can check if this is okay. If it is, then we can build something out of it. I will first build something very, very simple, test-based. Yeah. Okay, so that's all for today's meeting. Everybody happy?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Good. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening drinking, if you drink.
Okay.
Thanks. You
Yeah.
too. Bye.
Okay. See you. Bye.
Hey.